Welcome to this episode. Today we're telling one of the rarest and most moving stories to emerge from the world of cold cases. A tale that begins with young love and ordinary dreams, descends into decades of silence, and ends with a reunion made possible only by the quiet power of modern science. It starts in the late 1970s in New Smyrna Beach, Florida, a sleepy coastal town where the Atlantic rolls in gently. Palm trees sway, and neighbors still wave from porches. Harold Dean Clouse, Jr., everyone called him Dean, is 19, a skilled cabinet maker with steady hands and an easy smile. He's tall, reliable, the kind of young man who fixes screen doors for widows down the street without being asked twice. His family is close. Mother Donna Casasanta, sisters Debbie and Cheryl, cousins who feel like siblings. Dean is the steady center everyone leans on. Not far away lives Tina Lynn, 15, bright-eyed and kind, with a laugh that lights up any room she walks into. Her family, brother Les, sister Sherry, parents, lives in the same tight-knit orbit. The connection is already there. Dean's sister is dating Tina's brother, so the two families are constantly crossing paths at barbecues, birthdays, Sunday dinners. When Dean and Tina finally meet properly through those gatherings, something clicks instantly. Friendship turns to romance quickly, intense, hopeful, the kind of young love that feels like it could last forever. On June 25, 1979, they stand before a judge at the Volusia County Courthouse and say their vows. Dean is 19, Tina 16. They're young, very young, but utterly determined. They don't want extravagance, they want simplicity, a little place of their own, enough money to get by comfortably, and most of all, each other. Tina already talks about the day she'll become a mother. She's bought a small baby book, the kind with spaces for first steps, first words, first everything. Dean promises he'll build her the life they both dream of. That dream takes its first real shape on January 24, 1980. Holly Marie Clouse is born healthy, with wide, curious eyes and cheeks that make everyone want to pinch them. The early photographs are pure joy. Holly cradled in Dean's strong arms, Tina gazing down at her daughter with the quiet awe of new motherhood, the baby reaching chubby fingers toward the camera. Tina fills the baby book meticulously, every milestone noted, every tiny accomplishment celebrated. Dean appears in nearly every frame, grinning ear to ear, the proud father who can't quite believe this little person belongs to them. But bigger opportunities are calling from farther west. In 1980, the Dallas-Fort Worth metro area in Texas is exploding with growth. Construction sites everywhere, new subdivisions rising overnight, and skilled tradespeople like Dean can command much better wages than in Florida. After long talks late into the night, Dean and Tina decide it's worth the leap. They pack their belongings into their red 1978 AMC Concord, buckle 6-month-old Holly into her car seat, and drive the long road from Florida to Louisville, a fast-growing suburb north of Dallas. They find a modest apartment. Dean starts looking for cabinet-making jobs. Tina settles into caring for Holly in their new space. The letters home continue, full of optimism. Tina writes regularly to both sets of parents. Holly is pulling herself up on furniture now, starting to babble da-da, laughing so hard at peekaboo that she hiccups. In October 1980, one envelope stands out. Tina encloses several snapshots of Holly standing proudly beside her little walker, staring straight into the camera with that big, trusting baby smile. Donna Casasanta keeps the photos in a special place, passing them around to the family, everyone smiling at the milestones happening so far away. Then the mailbox stays empty. No more letters arrive. Phone calls to the apartment ring and ring with no answer. Weeks stretch into a month, then 2. At first, the families tell themselves it's normal. New city, new job, adjusting to life as transplants. But as the holidays approach and still nothing comes, the silence grows heavier, more ominous. Donna starts writing letters of her own. They come back marked undeliverable. She calls the apartment complex. No forwarding address on file. Worry hardens into dread. By early 1981, after months without contact, the families file missing persons reports with local police in Florida. Dean, Tina, and Baby Holly are entered into national databases, but the couple had only lived in Texas a short time, had no criminal history, no known enemies, no red flags. Investigators have almost nothing to work with. Far to the south, in a remote wooded patch of northern Harris County near Houston, roughly 250 miles from Louisville, something terrible has already happened. One strange detail emerges early, sometime late in 1980 or very early 1981. A woman identifying herself only as Sister Susan telephones Donna Casasanta. She claims Dean and Tina have joined a religious community that encourages members to sever ties with their past lives. She says they are safe, content, and do not wish further contact. As a gesture, she offers to return their red AMC Concord. Desperate for any sign of life, the family agrees to the arrangement. The car is eventually delivered, but Sister Susan vanishes completely. Police document the call, but without concrete evidence tying it to a crime, it remains an unsettling, unprovable thread. The red AMC Concord had been returned to the family in Florida under mysterious circumstances, but the questions only multiplied. Where were Dean and Tina? More importantly, where was little Holly? Then, in the first weeks of 1981, the answer to part of that question arrived in the most heartbreaking way. On January 6th, a local man walking his German Shepherd in a secluded, heavily wooded area off Wallaceville Road in northern Harris County watched as the dog bounded into the thick palmettos and live oaks, then reappeared carrying something grim, a severely decomposed human arm. Alarmed, he contacted the Harris County Sheriff's Office immediately. Deputies responded, and after a careful search of the boggy, overgrown terrain, located two sets of skeletal remains on January 12th. The bodies lay relatively close together, partially covered by natural debris and the passage of time. Due to the humid subtropical climate and exposure, likely several months, decomposition had advanced significantly, making visual identification impossible. Investigators documented the scene meticulously. The male victim showed evidence of having been bound at the wrists and ankles, with clear signs of blunt force trauma. The female victim exhibited indications of strangulation. No firearms or other weapons were recovered at the location. Personal effects were absent or too degraded to provide immediate leads. No wallets, no jewelry, no documents that could point to names or origins. The victims were estimated to be in their late teens to early 20s, fitting the profile of a young couple. But because Dean and Tina had only recently arrived in Texas from Florida and had not yet formed lasting local connections, no employers reporting absences, no landlords raising alarms, no missing persons reports from the Houston area matched. Traditional identification methods of the era, fingerprints, if recoverable, dental comparisons, physical descriptions, hit dead ends against limited state and national databases. Harris County. Forensic artist Mary Mize was brought in to create facial reconstructions. Using skeletal features, she produced soft pastel drawings depicting what the man and woman might have looked like in life. A young man with short hair and open features, a young woman with gentle expression. These images were distributed to local media, neighboring law enforcement agencies, and national clearinghouses like the NCIC. Despite circulation, no identifications followed. The case was entered as a double homicide. Early investigative theories considered the possibility that the female was attacked first, with the male attempting to intervene or defend her, a scenario suggested by positioning and injuries. But without witnesses or forensic breakthroughs, it remained speculation. With no leads materializing and resources needed for active cases, the remains were eventually released. They were buried in unmarked graves at the Harris County Cemetery for the Unidentified, a potter's field where many John and Jane Does rest anonymously. The file went cold, but not entirely forgotten. Periodic reviews occurred, new missing persons bulletins cross-checked, any emerging forensic advancements considered, but in the pre-DNA era, progress was minimal. Back in Florida, the families endured the agonizing limbo. Donna Casasanta and the Lynn siblings clung to the last known images of Holly, the October 1980 photos of her standing with her walker, and to the hope that somewhere she was safe. They speculated about the Sister Susan caller. Was she connected to whatever happened? Was the religious group story a cover? Police pursued the angle as far as possible when inquiring about known communes or nomadic sects in Texas, but nothing concrete emerged. As the 1980s turned to the 1990s, DNA technology began to enter forensics, offering new hope. The families provided reference samples whenever authorities requested them, blood or cheek swabs to create familial profiles. But early, databases were small, focused mainly on offenders and crime scenes. Matches required near-exact hits and no connections surfaced. The breakthrough came slowly. In 2011, Harris County received a grant from the National Institute of Justice to exhume several unidentified homicide victims for advanced DNA extraction. The aim? Generate modern genetic profiles suitable for entry into expanding systems like CODIS, and check for any biological relationships or direct matches. Forensic anthropologist Jennifer Love, then director of the Identification Unit at the Harris County Medical Examiner's Office, oversaw the process. Known for her meticulous work with skeletal remains, she ensured the exhumation was conducted under strict protocols to preserve evidence and avoid contamination. Soil samples were documented, bones cataloged, and tissue carefully sampled. Testing confirmed the two individuals were not biologically related, no parent-child, sibling, or close kinship link. This eliminated some early assumptions and reinforced the idea of a non-familial connection, likely romantic or personal. High-quality DNA profiles were created and uploaded to national databases. Investigators waited for hits, but none came immediately. The profiles remained in the system, quietly waiting for technology or investigators to catch up. The true turning point arrived in the wake of 2018's Golden State Killer arrest, where forensic genetic genealogy, using consumer DNA databases and public genealogy sites, cracked a case dormant for decades. Suddenly, tools like GED Match with law enforcement opt-in allowed reverse tree building, start from distant genetic cousins, follow shared DNA segments measured in centimorgans, cross-reference with public records like censuses, marriage certificates, birth records, and obituaries. Late in 2020, the Harris County Does caught the eye of Identifinders International, a specialized forensic genealogy group. Senior forensic genealogist Misty Gillis, browsing cases on the volunteer-run Doe Network, a site dedicated to unidentified persons and long-term missing, selected this one. A young couple found together, no local ties. It felt solvable with genealogy. With funding from AudioChuck, the true crime podcast company behind shows like Crime Junkie, and close coordination from Harris County forensic anthropologist Deborah Pinto, the exhumed remains DNA was sent for whole genome sequencing, producing detailed SNP, single nucleotide polymorphism, data far more comprehensive than standard CODIS entries. The lab process took approximately 4 months to generate a usable high-resolution profile. Once complete, Gillis uploaded it to GED Match under approved law enforcement parameters. She began the painstaking work of building family trees backward, clustering close and distant matches, mapping shared DNA, tracing paper trails. In just 10 days, a strong paternal line match emerged pointing to the Clouse family in Florida. Gillis and colleague Allison Peacock, then with Identifinders, later founder of FHD Forensics, placed a careful call to Dean's sister, Debbie Brooks. They asked gently, "Is there anyone in your family who has been missing for 40 years or longer?" Debbie's response was immediate and emotional. "Yes, my brother Dean." The genealogists shared their belief that the male remains were Harold Dean Clouse Jr. Debbie revealed he had a wife, Tina, who vanished at the same time. Peacock quickly pulled Florida marriage records from 1979, confirming Tina Gale Lynn as Dean's spouse. Additional DNA matches from the Lynn family soon confirmed her identity. By October 2021, marking 40 years since the remains were discovered, the Harris County does had names: Harold Dean Clouse Jr. and Tina Gale Lynn Clouse. The news brought a wave of grief and relief to the families. They finally knew the fate of Dean and Tina. But one revelation shifted the entire case. When Debbie mentioned the kid, the genealogists paused. No infant remains had been found at the scene. No matching child cases existed in any database. Holly Marie Clouse, the baby, last documented in Tina's October 1980 letter, had disappeared alongside her parents, but unlike them, she had never been accounted for in death. With the remains definitively identified as Harold Dean Clouse Jr. and Tina Gale Lynn Clouse by October 2021, the focus of the entire investigation shifted in an instant. The question was no longer, who were these two young people found in the woods? It became something far more urgent and alive. Where is their daughter, Holly Marie Clouse, who was 17 months old when her parents disappeared? The last documented trace of Holly was in Tina's October 1980 letter home to Florida. A handful of photographs showing a bright-eyed baby pushing her little walker, smiling directly at the camera. No infant remains had ever been recovered from that boggy patch off Wallaceville Road in northern Harris County. No unidentified child matching her age, description, or timeline had appeared in any national clearinghouse. Neither the FBI's National Crime Information Center nor the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children's database over the intervening 41 years. That single glaring absence now became the heart of the case. The Texas Attorney General's Cold Case and Missing Persons Unit, a specialized team created in 2019 to address Texas's staggering backlog of unsolved homicides and long-term disappearances, assumed primary investigative responsibility. They immediately assembled a multi-agency task force: Harris County Sheriff's Office, Original Crime Scene, Louisville Police Department, last known residents of the family, Volusia County Sheriff's Office in Florida, origin of the original Missing Persons Report, and the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, NCMSC, whose expertise in long-term child cases and age progression artistry was invaluable. The first actionable steps were methodical and layered. Visual age progression NCMEC forensic artists took the handful of 1980 baby photographs of Holly Marie Clouse and applied state-of-the-art age progression techniques. They considered genetic factors from both parents: Dean's strong jawline and broad forehead, Tina's soft eyes and gentle smile, as well as standard aging markers for a woman in her early 40s. The resulting composite image depicted a mature woman with dark hair, an approachable face, and an expression that blended quiet strength with warmth. This image was distributed widely to law enforcement databases, social media, and media outlets in Texas, Oklahoma, and surrounding states. Targeted familial DNA searching reference DNA samples already collected from multiple Clouse and Lynn relatives, aunts, uncles, first cousins, were uploaded to public genealogy platforms that permit law enforcement opt-in searches, primarily GED Match, with mirrors from Ancestry and 23andMe data where possible. Investigators set narrow parameters, high centimorgan (cm) matches, typically 1,500 plus cm for a first-degree relative like a daughter, or 600 1/200 centimeters for half-siblings or close cousins, combined with shared matches across both family lines. Any profile showing adoption, foster care, or unknown biological origins before age 2 was flagged for immediate follow-up. Re-examination of 1980-1981 loose ends. The mysterious Sister Susan phone call was revisited in depth. Although original phone records had long since vanished, detectives re-interviewed surviving family members for every detail they could recall about the caller's voice, accent, phrasing. The return of the red AMC Concord suggested someone had possession of the vehicle shortly after the couple's disappearance, possibly the same person who removed Holly from the scene. Investigators also quietly queried former members of nomadic religious or communal groups active in Texas during that era, particularly the Christ family, a decentralized, non-violent sect known for barefoot. Members wearing long white robes, strict vegetarianism, rejection of leather products, and communal living. Former adherents were interviewed. Some recalled Sister Susan as a real name used within certain circles, but no one could confirm direct involvement in violence or child relocation. Timeline reconstruction. Forensic anthropologists refined the time of death estimate for Dean and Tina to late October or early November 1980, based on insect activity, soil conditions, and decomposition rates in the humid Texas climate. This placed Holly's separation from her parents very close to the murders, likely within days or even hours. Detectives theorized that whoever killed the couple may have taken the infant, either to conceal her existence or to place her in an informal adoption. This hypothesis drove searches into Texas and neighboring states' adoption records from 1980-1982, focusing on church-based or community placements that bypassed formal agencies. While traditional investigators worked these angles, the forensic genealogists Misty Gillis and Allison Peacock continued their parallel, highly specialized effort. They had already built robust family trees for both the Clouse and Lynn sides during the identification phase. Now, with Holly confirmed missing, they expanded those trees exponentially. They clustered every shared match on GED Match, grouping distant cousins by centimorgan ranges, e.g., 200-400 cm for third cousins, 100-200 cm for fourth. They triangulated overlapping segments to confirm which branches were relevant. They cross-referenced with public records, birth certificates, marriage licenses, obituaries, old-school yearbooks, and Social Security death indexes. They monitored new uploads daily, watching for profiles that appeared orphaned, people who listed adoptive parents, vague early childhoods, or no known biological family before age 2. For months, promising leads surfaced and were systematically eliminated. A woman in her early 40s in Kansas matched at 800 cm, but her adoption records traced to a different state and year. Another in New Mexico shared 650 cm with the Clouse line, but paper trails showed her biological parents alive and accounted for in 1980. Each false lead was frustrating but necessary. Genealogy is a process of exclusion as much as inclusion. Then, in the first week of June 2022, a new GED Match upload triggered an immediate high-priority alert. The profile belonged to a woman in her early 40s living in central Oklahoma. She shared over 1,700 centimorgans with multiple Clouse relatives and nearly 1,600 with Lynn relatives. amounts strongly consistent with a child of Dean and Tina. Her own tree showed adoption as an infant, raised by a pastor and his wife in a small church community with no biological family documented prior to age 2. The match strength was overwhelming. There was no realistic chance of coincidence. Gillis and Peacock contacted the Texas AG unit within hours. Detectives moved quickly and discreetly. They verified the woman's current name, Holly Miller, married, age 42, and residence, Cushing, Oklahoma, a quiet town of about 8,000 people roughly 300 miles north of Houston. She worked at Nafe's Deli and Grill, had 5 children, and lived a stable, unremarkable life centered around family and faith. On June 7, 2022, the date that would have been Dean Clouse's 62nd birthday, 2 investigators from the AG's cold case unit entered Nafe's Deli during the lunch rush. They waited until the crowd thinned, then asked to speak with Holly privately in the back office. They began gently. They showed her the NCMEC age progression image first, then the original 1980 baby photographs. They explained the 41-year journey, the unidentified remains found in 1981, the long cold years, the 2011 exhumation, the 2020 grant-funded genetic sequencing, the breakthrough identification of Dean and Tina in 2021, and the focused search for the missing infant that had led, finally, to her. Holly listened in stunned silence as the detectives laid out the facts. She had always known she was adopted. Pastor Philip McGoldrick and his wife had raised her in a loving church home after 2 barefoot women in long white robes brought her to the church as a baby, along with her birth certificate and a handwritten note, purportedly from Dean, relinquishing parental rights. The McGoldricks had never hidden the adoption. They simply had no further details about her origins, and Holly had grown up secure in the family she knew. She had no memories of Florida, no memories of Texas, no memories of the violence that took her parents. The detectives confirmed everything through DNA. She was unequivocally Holly Marie Clouse. That same afternoon, with Holly's consent, arrangements were made for a Zoom reunion. More than 25 biological relatives, aunts, uncles, first cousins from both the Clouse and Lynn sides gathered in Florida. When Holly appeared on screen, the room filled with gasps, tears, and overlapping voices. Debbie Brooks, Dean's sister, spoke first through sobs. "We've been looking for you your whole life." Aunts and cousins held up faded baby photos, shared stories of Dean's easy laugh and Tina's gentle nature, and described how they had celebrated Holly's birthday every January 24th for 41 years, even when hope was thin. In November 2022, supported by NCMEC, Holly traveled to Florida for an in-person reunion. The gathering lasted days. Long hugs, albums spread across tables, late-night conversations about the parents she would never meet, but now knew intimately. She grieved deeply for Dean and Tina, yet felt profound gratitude for the adoptive family that had raised her with unwavering love. The murders of Dean and Tina remain unsolved. The Texas Attorney General's cold case unit continues to pursue leads, particularly around nomadic religious communities, but no arrests have been made. Tips are still actively sought. What followed this reunion would transform the case from a personal miracle into a broader beacon of hope for countless other families still waiting. The November 2022 reunion in Florida did not close the book on Holly Marie Clouse's life. It opened a new volume filled with pages she never knew existed. She returned to Cushing, Oklahoma, carrying 2 hearts inside her chest. One that had been shaped by the steady, loving hands of Pastor Philip McGoldrick and his wife, who had cradled her as an infant after 2 barefoot women in flowing white robes appeared at their small church one day, placed a baby in their arms, handed over a birth certificate and a handwritten note, believed to be from Dean, and vanished into the night. Holly had grown up knowing she was adopted, but the knowledge had always felt gentle, not gaping. The McGoldricks never made her feel like a question mark. They made her feel like a gift. They raised her with bedtime stories, Sunday hymns, and the kind of love that doesn't need explanations to be complete. The other heart belonged to the family she had just met, a family that had lived with a permanent hollow place for 41 years. Aunts who had kept her baby pictures in silver frames on living room mantels, cousins who blew out candles on imaginary cakes. Every January 24th, a grandmother, Donna Casasanta, who had whispered Holly's name in prayers long after hope had grown threadbare. When Donna learned Holly had been found, she wept and said it felt like a birthday gift from heaven on what would have been Dean's 62nd birthday. Less than a year later, in October 2023, Donna passed away. Holly never got to hold her grandmother's hand in person one more time. That quiet grief, the near miss of a final embrace, still surfaces in Holly's voice when she speaks about it. I wish I could have told her thank you in person. Thank you for never giving up on me. The reunion itself was a tapestry of raw emotion. In Florida, Holly walked into rooms full of strangers who looked like pieces of her, the same jawline as Dean, the same soft eyes as Tina. There were long, wordless hugs that seemed to compress 4 decades into seconds. Albums were opened. Faded photographs of Holly as a baby were passed around like sacred relics. Someone would point to a picture and say, "That's the day Tina sent this home. She wrote how you were starting to stand up on your own." Holly listened, tears streaming, as relatives described her parents. Dean's easy laugh that filled a room, how he'd drop everything to fix a neighbor's cabinet door. Tina's gentle hands, the way she'd document every tiny milestone in her baby book with careful, loving handwriting. Holly grieved for the parents she would never know in the flesh, yet she felt them in every story, every shared smile, every tear. She also felt the profound gratitude for the life she had been given. In quiet moments, she would think about Pastor McGoldrick reading her bedtime stories, teaching her to pray, walking her down the aisle on her wedding day. She had 2 mothers who loved her. One she had known her entire life, one she was only now meeting through memories and photographs. The duality was both beautiful and painful, a reminder that love doesn't divide, it multiplies. From that place of profound duality, Holly chose to act. She and her biological family established the Dean and Tina Clouse Memorial Fund, which soon grew into Genealogy for Justice, G4J, a 501c3 nonprofit co-founded with forensic genealogist Allison Peacock. The mission was simple yet ambitious: to raise funds and provide technical support for genetic genealogy investigations into unidentified human remains across the United States. The organization focuses on cases where traditional methods have stalled for decades. John and Jane Does who have waited in anonymous graves, their families left in limbo. G4J uses the same powerful tools that solved Holly's own mystery: high-resolution SNP sequencing, public genealogy databases with law enforcement opt-in, primarily GED match, expert reverse tree building, and relentless cross-referencing of public records. The impact came swiftly and visibly. In 2023, with funding and investigative support from G4J, a 1982 unidentified female from South Carolina was positively identified as Virginia Higgins Ray, the organization's first official success. In 2024, G4J helped name the Daytona Beach Jane Doe as Pamela K. Whitman, a woman missing since 1981. Additional cases followed: Picture Rock's Jane Doe, 1985, a Volusia County John Doe, 1982, and South Island John Doe. Each identification was a quiet triumph, A name returned to a grave, a family given answers after decades of silence. As of early 2026, the fund has reached 45% of its $100,000 goal, managed directly by G4J under founder Isabel de la Luz, and continues to support ongoing investigations. Holly became one of the most recognizable voices in the forensic genealogy community. In her 2023 ABC 2020 interview, she spoke with raw honesty. "I knew I was adopted, but I never imagined this. It was like my whole life suddenly had two beginnings." She described the moment detectives showed her the age progression photo and the baby pictures. "I looked at that face and knew it was me, but I also knew the little girl in the walker had no idea what was coming." In a 2024 K12 TV interview in Tulsa, she addressed the lingering ache. "It's tormenting to the soul when you just don't know. Not knowing what happened to your parents, not knowing if your child is alive somewhere. That's a special kind of hell. Genetic genealogy is ending that hell for more families every year." Her 2023 memoir, Finding Baby Holly, Lost to a Cult, Surviving My Parents' Murder, and Saved by Prayer, co-authored with journalist Nicole Young, became a cornerstone of her advocacy. The book is both memoir and manifesto. She writes of the shock at the deli, the tears on the Zoom call when 25 relatives appeared on screen, the in-person reunion where she finally held the hands that had once held her mother. She writes about forgiveness, not just toward the unknown perpetrators, but toward the circumstances that stole her parents. "I don't hate the people who did this," she says in the book. "I hate what was taken, but I choose to live in the light of what was given back." Proceeds from the book support G4J's work, and the book itself has inspired thousands to upload their DNA to help solve other cases. Yet the murders of Dean and Tina remain unsolved. The Texas Attorney General's Cold Case and Missing Persons Unit continues to pursue leads, particularly around nomadic religious communities active in the late 1970s and early 1980s. The Christ family, known for barefoot members in white robes, strict vegetarianism, rejection of leather, and a transient anti-materialist lifestyle, has been a consistent focus. Detectives have interviewed former members, including a woman who confirmed using the name Sister Susan in the early 1980s and acknowledged returning the Clouse's red AMC Concord. She denied any knowledge of or involvement in violence. No physical evidence or credible witness has yet connected anyone conclusively to the crime. Holly remains hopeful yet realistic. "I don't think the people we've spoken to committed the murders. I think they were living their way of life. But someone knows something. I pray that one day compassion will bring that truth forward." Holly's story has become a landmark in the world of cold case resolution. It stands out because Holly was found alive, a rare miracle in a field where most breakthroughs involve naming the deceased. It also highlights the broader crisis. NCMEC has assisted with more than 670 unidentified child and infant remains over the years, many still nameless. Adult does number in the thousands. Each represents a family in the same limbo. The Clouse and Lynn families endured for 4 decades. Today, Holly lives fully in the present, raising her 5 children and grandchildren, working at Naife's Deli, attending church, and dedicating increasing time to advocacy. She speaks at conferences, appears on podcasts, and continues to support G4J's mission. Her life is grounded, joyful, and purposeful, a testament to resilience. She has 2 families who love her, 2 mothers who shaped her, and a mission that turns personal pain into collective healing. What began as a young couple's hopeful drive west for a better future ended in tragedy beyond comprehension. But through decades of quiet persistence, breakthroughs in science, and the unbreakable bonds of love, biological, adoptive, and chosen, it became something far greater, a beacon of hope, a catalyst for change, and a reminder that even after 41 years of silence, some stories can still find their way home. Thank you for listening to Holly's journey. If it moved you, consider supporting Genealogy for Justice. Donate, upload your DNA to GED Match with law enforcement opt-in enabled, or simply share the message that no family should ever have to wait forever. Miracles happen when we refuse to stop searching.